Every landscape in this film was about to change. The federal government knew it and sent a photographer through first. Caribou near Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. August 1973. The photographer's caption reads, "Where the pipeline will start. Mile 0. From this gravel roadway, the Trans-Alaska Pipeline would run 789 miles south to the Pacific. Almost none of it existed yet. Nothing in this film is colorized. When light and film agree, 1973 looks like this. Other rolls have drifted red. That is the film too. The man in the frame is the photographer. Dennis Cowals, 2 hours into stalking Dall sheep, sent by the EPA to photograph the route before construction touched it. The view south from Mile 0 toward the Brooks Range. The gray band is a rain squall. Everything between here and the far ocean was spoken for. Here is why the land was still empty. Oil had been found under Prudhoe Bay in 1968. The pipe had been designed and ordered. Then a federal court stopped the project and held it stopped. February 1973. The full D.C. Circuit ruled the permits illegal. The right-of-way was wider than the Mineral Leasing Act allowed. The injunction would hold, the court wrote, until Congress changes the applicable law. Congress changed it. July 17, 1973. Senator Mike Gravel of Alaska moved to declare the environmental review complete. No more study, no more lawsuits. It passed by one vote, 49 to 48. Then the vote that made it stick. On the motion locking the amendment in place, the Senate split 49 to 49. The Vice President voted yea. The environmental review was over. 3 weeks after that vote, Cowals was over the North Slope. The pipeline's first 100 miles would follow this river, the Sagavanerktok, south toward the mountains. Patterned ground. The lattice is ice, working just under the surface. Permafrost runs nearly the whole length of the route, and hot oil and frozen ground would have to learn to live together. Galbraith Lake, looking south into the Atagun Valley. The pipeline's corridor through the Brooks Range. 5 in the morning. The sun burning fog off the lake. In August, this far north, the light barely leaves. A young fox near the Galbraith Lake camp wrestling a turkey neck, a handout from the camp cook. The survey camps were already here. The wild was already learning their schedule. Dall sheep held these slopes. This one, the caption says, was bolder than its companions, and decided to investigate the photographer. A white wolf. She dens in the riverbank 5 miles south of the camp and covers 20 miles a day hunting. Wolf tracks on a lakeshore near mile 141. The caption notes what the hill above the lake is for. Pump Station 14 will be built on top of it. Caribou drop their antlers every year. These lie in the Atagun Valley, and on the skyline behind them the site of Pump Station 4. A rainbow rooted in the wall of the Atagun Gorge. The gorge was spared. The line had been drawn through it and rerouted north that same year, past these limestone cliffs where eagles and falcons nest. South through the Atagun Valley toward Dietrich Pass and the far side of the Brooks Range. The road and the pipeline would climb the center of this narrow valley to the pass. At 4,790 feet, the highest point on the route, shelf of high country south of the range. The line would cross the river at the bend, then descend a 700-foot bluff. The braided channels of the Dietrich River. Every dark bar in this picture is gravel, and the caption marks them the way a contractor would. Source: Wiseman, a gold mining center from 1911 into the 40s. By this August, a handful of miners were still working. The route follows the far side of the river. Alaska had already tried a road to the oil. Trailers and a wrecked plane left from the winter ice road cut north in 1970. The new route passes west of here, the Yukon. The crossing itself. The caption walks the span corner to corner. The pipeline suspension bridge will cross from the lower left of the frame to the lower right. South of the river, the route was already legible on the ground, a cut through the forest where the line would cross the Living Good Highway. Nearer Fairbanks, the ground already carried the marks of an older extraction. Tailing mounds left by the gold dredges that worked these valleys into the 1950s. Fairbanks. The Chena River through the middle of town, the Tanana on the horizon. The pipeline would cross the Chena a few miles upstream. Island Homes subdivision in a bend of the Chi Knob. The caption does not soften it. Any oil spillage at the pipeline crossing 6 miles upstream could directly affect these homes. And the pipe was already there. The Alyeska Pipeline Service Company's Fairbanks yard. More than 200 miles of 48-inch pipe. Most lengths 50 to 60 feet, stacked and waiting. Donnelly Dome, standing at the entrance to the Alaska Range. The Black Rapids Glacier. In 1938, the caption records, they called it the Galloping Glacier, advancing many feet a day toward the only road south. It stopped on its own. This trench is the Denali Fault, an active earthquake fault. The pipeline route runs through this frame and across it. The Gulkana. Salmon swim 200 miles up from the sea to spawn in this water. Fast and clean, the caption says. The pipeline would cross it at mile 643. After spawning, the salmon dies. Here she lies in the gravel of the stream bed. The Klutina, west of Copper Center, draining into the Copper River, the salmon's passageway from the sea. The Chugach Range, the last wall between the oil and Tidewater, peak 7,000 feet above the route. Thompson Pass, 50 feet of snow can fall here in a winter and the highway closes for days at a time. Worthington Glacier, the line would thread between its snout and the road. The crevasses up close. The caption's reassurance carries its own condition. As long as the glacier continues to retreat, it is not a danger to the pipeline. Valdez. In the foreground, the pipe yard. At the lower right, ruins, the old town, abandoned after the 1964 Good Friday earthquake dropped its shoreline. The new terminal would be built across the bay on bedrock. The terminal site itself, on the ground of a 1900 Army post called Fort Liscombe. Storage tanks on the terraces. Tanker berths in the water between the point and the islet. In October, the embargo came and gasoline lines came with it. On November 16, 1973, the President signed the Trans-Alaska Pipeline Authorization Act. Title II, Section 203. The pipeline, quote, be constructed promptly without further administrative or judicial delay or impediment. And the clause the Senate had split even over. The work shall be taken without further action under the National Environmental Policy Act, and the permits, quote, shall not be subject to judicial review under any law. August 1974. Cowals flew the route again with the law signed. The stakes were in. His caption points them out on the highway shoulder between the two cars. A survey stake beside the Richardson Highway. The letters APSC stand for Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, the consortium formed to build the line. The center line already cleared through black spruce and muskeg. Sheep Creek Camp, in what the caption calls the preliminary land clearing phase. The crest of Thompson Pass, From here, the pipe would drop more than 1,500 vertical feet in less than a mile, one of the steepest sections of the line. Keystone Canyon, which the line would skirt along a bench above these cliffs. Port Valdez, the farthest north ice-free port on the continent. The reason the pipeline ends where it ends. By this 2nd August, the yards at Valdez held 418 miles of pipe. Fairbanks held 238 more. Prudhoe Bay, 168. The whole line in pieces, waiting on the ground. The new town looking across to the terminal. The caption takes inventory. The hospital, a bicycle trail between the housing rows, a clearing for pipeline workers' homes. At the city dock, a tanker, the Alaska Standard delivering fuel to the coastal towns. The open water between Jackson Point and Saw Island. The caption assigns it a future. This is where the tanker loading berths would stand. Sockeye, in the stream where they were born. The fresh waters around Port Valdez were closed to fishing, to protect the spawning. A fishing boat puts out from the small boat harbor. Cowals' caption records the argument being lost. Cordova's fishermen opposed the pipeline for the threat tanker traffic and oil spills posed to the fishery. This is what a tanker meant here in 1974. The Alaska Standard, 255 feet long, carrying 1,078 barrels. And this is what was coming. The caption does the arithmetic. Pipeline tankers, 900 feet long, carrying up to 940,000 barrels of crude, off Busby Island, 27 miles out. Valdez Narrows, 11 miles out, every loaded tanker would thread this passage. The state ferry crossing Prince William Sound. In the caption's words, well away from the planned tanker routes. Cowals' last frames look across the snout of the Columbia Glacier. His caption counts the ice, hundreds of icebergs a year carried out by wind and current, and places the proposed tanker route just beyond. 15 years later, 9 minutes past midnight, March 24, 1989, a loaded tanker grounded on Bligh Reef in Prince William Sound. 258,000 barrels went into the water. She was the Exxon Valdez. The federal report blamed people: a fatigued third mate, an impaired master, a thin crew, the traffic service not watching. But the reason she was out of her lane is on this page. She had turned to avoid ice. Ice calved from the Columbia Glacier, drifting into the tanker lanes. And as the ship came around, the third mate took his bearing off Busby Island, the point Cowals had framed from the air 15 years before in the caption that did the arithmetic.